So without further ado, we're going to dive into our first speaker, who is an amazing human doing really important work here in Nashville. And it's called Trap Gardens. This is Rob Horton. And when I saw his name pop up in an email and I clicked the link and started looking into what he's doing, it totally blew me away. I mean, just such important work. I have a little nonprofit of my own, and to see somebody who's built something, it's 5 years this year.
Yep, 5th year, celebrating 5 years.
It's incredible. I mean, that is no small thing. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your work, how it's connected to nature, and why you're up here? What's the story?
Yeah, so as he said, this is our 5th year as a nonprofit that was established here in Nashville. And really, it was initially an organization that was created out of frustration. So I'm from St. Louis, Missouri, born and raised, moved here to Nashville to attend Tennessee State University. Then I went to Belmont University, and I noticed actually a trend over time of some things that I was seeing not only in St. Louis, but also Nashville. It was a food desert community that I was in when I was living in all of these different areas. I mean, literally had little to no access to anything that was not only healthy, but also affordable for my body. And honestly, it got to a point that I got so pissed off of what was available in my local grocery store that I said, you know what? I'm going to see if I can just grow my own, because I thought that I would be able to produce something better than all the spoiled items that I was actually able to get out of my grocery store. So people talk about, actually building something from the ground up. This is something that was literally created from the soil up. Like, I had to go deeper than ground level to get this started. I had no experience gardening or growing anything. I was just so pissed off and frustrated that I said, I'm gonna figure it out. And then if I get it wrong, I can't really complain about what's at the grocery store, right? And so as I started having these experiences of me actually trying to grow something and learning from those other people at the community garden that I was involved in, my friends started coming out because they didn't believe that I was actually doing something. I mean, literally no green thumb at all. It was probably more purple from banging it on stuff than it was green at the time, right? And so it got to a point that we were having these conversations, and this is not something that was only experienced in St. Louis and Nashville, but also other cities like Detroit, Miami, and other places. So I was like, how can I create a really dope experience to get people involved and invested in growing something that mattered, growing something that was going to be better for their bodies, and at least being open to try something new. So we started launching these community gardens in the Nashville area. We do educational programming at schools centered around going green and being able to grow something and trying new food items. But then we also create like regional programs for different companies as well to be able to get other people who are in college to either start something that matters or at least put something else in their stomach outside of just pizza and hot wings all the time. So that's a little bit about us.
That's awesome. That's so cool.
Yeah.
So one of the things that Hipcamp's doing is by opening up and unlocking private lands, they're creating an economy for these private landowners to complement their work, to put extra money in their pocket so they can be better stewards. I mean, you know how hard it is to grow food, right?
Oh, yeah.
Growing strawberries is no easy thing.
Nah, not at all, not at all. But I think that you can actually see through that process that it's something that's needed and necessary. And it's not an easy thing, but it's worth it at the end of the day. And if you're one of those farmers that's putting in all of this work to be able to produce something that's going to be really good for consumers, there's also space that you're not always utilizing. And you just talked about like the difficulties of accessing these places sometimes. Think about if you lived in a community and you got difficulties accessing your local grocery store. Like, think about how many times you've been in the grocery store and got angry or frustrated because you came for that one item and you can't find that item anywhere. Imagine if it was like that for every item. So we're trying to provide access points, just like what this actual company is doing here, providing more access for you to be able to get an enjoyable experience and do what it is that you want to actually do within nature.
So why would you say it's important to support, whether it's farmers, your urban, garden? Like, why is that important? Why is it important for people to connect with food and support these people who are stewarding these landscapes?
Well, everybody got to eat, right? I mean, clearly I've seen plenty of plates going down tonight. I mean, it's very, very enjoyable food, but we all got to get it from somewhere. And it doesn't come from the grocery store, which a lot of the kids that I actually teach and educate, if you ask where their food comes from, a lot of times they'll say, well, wherever my mom picks it up from on the way home. But really, it truly is coming from your soil. You got to be able to give back to the same people that are supporting you and what you're putting on your table, because it should be, as always, truly farm to table. And so by you all being able to go out here and experience something in nature, you're giving them more funds to be able to pump into what they're doing to provide an amazing access point for you all to be able to have an enjoyable meal like tonight.
That's awesome. So what would you say, like in your experience working with people in the community who don't necessarily have access to nature, access to food? Like what are some of the main hurdles? What are some of the main obstacles in front of especially young people?
Convincing them to get off their phone first and foremost, getting past what's immediately in your hand. And nature really does teach you a lot. I mean, patience was the biggest thing that I have ever learned in regards to being out in the field and working and in these garden sites. So getting them away from the screen and showing them that it can be a really good experience. I know one thing that we do is we try to get them invested in what they're doing, right? So we're establishing a community garden at an elementary school where we're going to be telling them this is your garden, you're going to be creating a farmer's market. We'll bring in somebody from a marketing department to say, let's go ahead and try to create a logo. These are some of the types of things that you want to incorporate to get people interested in it. We actually take a seasonality chart for Tennessee and say, what are you interested in growing during the season? We each get the chance to vote on what's going to be grown, so they have input in it as well. And then what should the price structure be? How should we be able to map this out? So we really are linking it with the lesson plans in which they have in school. And they're actually learning what it really takes to be a farmer or somebody within your community that's putting food on somebody's table.
So would you say, like, where do you see that kind of that inflection point where they're going from, hey, this is kind of boring, or hey, this is not interesting, to being engaged?
I think that when they actually get an opportunity to create and build that ownership piece. So it's immediately when they are making those logos, they're automatically saying, well, this is something that we own. At recess, each one of them will assign a certain day in which they have to go out there and water when we're not physically at the school. You have to think of a slogan. We record an actual commercial for them to be able to share with other individuals as well. And with that, we're also expanding their palettes by being able to bring new food items that they haven't tried before. I know the first time that I had quinoa, I thought it was quinoa. And it's the same exact thing for them. And whether they like it or not like it, they have the opportunity to say that they tried something new. And a lot of times when we're bringing in these herbs, when they end up liking a certain herb item, they want to see it grown. And they're passionate about it actually growing out there.
Very cool.
Yeah.
So what are some ways that people here can get involved with what you're doing in the community?
So it's a lot of different ways. So we do have 2 gardens located in actually Nashville. One is in South Nashville with Johnson Alternative Learning Center. One is in West Nashville at Buena Vista Elementary School. If you are familiar with like the Slim and Huskies that's over there, it's literally like a few spaces back from there. If you want to come out and get involved or interested in seeing that interaction with the children, you can. If you want to put in some work and get your hands dirty out in the garden, we'll always take that as well. Or if you want to sponsor one of the raised beds that community members use, you can visit trapgarden.org or follow us on our social media page, trapgarden, all one word, and you'll be able to get involved and invested.
Well, hey, let's give it up for Trap Garden.
Appreciate you. Come on and get your hands dirty with us. Thank you.